story has hot air balloons and pirates and treasure hunters in it, so I thought it was fitting the, so just take yourself down a couple notches as far as culture. So it's called About the Hiding of Buried Treasure. It's common enough to hear about the finding of buried treasure, but the real trick is in the hiding. The finding is easy. You just need some head lanterns, a pickaxe, an old sea-worn map, waterproof matches, and a rune decoder. Possibly some dynamite and tripwire if you're being shadowed. But hiding it, that's another story. It's a lifelong toil. And trading doubloons in this economy is almost more trouble than it's worth sometimes. Our island is chock full of treasure. It's bursting at the seams with plunder and booty, trapdoors, trick caves, and rocks marked with big mossy X's. Pop has trained Jezebel and I to keep it hidden. We scrub the X's off the rocks, cover hidden entrances with branches and hornets' nests, and fill up the sunken mounds of old pirate graves until the earth is smooth. In the winters, when the ground is frozen, the waves make funnels of salt ice, and we practice ice surfing in crowns and tiaras. We check our booby traps to make sure they haven't frozen over, and search the island for new treasure. It's just us and the polar bears. We throw secret carnivals and glittering parades. However, in the summer, there is no time to play. We're positively swarmed with visitors. People come here from all over, although most of them don't know why. Their free market noses are trained to follow the scent of wealth across oceans and deserts. This is the real story of humanity. They smile at us and sniff the air curiously. They look around at the tangled trees and spur-filled sands and try to come up with convincing explanations for their visits. We just had to come see your charming island, they say. Or we felt some draw to explore this part of the world. They can feel the ground wealth trembling, even though we tell them that it's just the shifting of tectonic plates and the rumblings of a resident live volcano. Jezebel and I take great care to appear slow and backwards. We can wear as many crowns and tiaras as we want in our wintry solitude, but when there's visitors on the island, Pop likes us to seem dim-witted. Jezebel paints her lips in uneven red circles and kinks her orange hair with boxes of out-of-date home perms. She talks with a slow southern drawl that has no place on a windswept northern island, but nobody ever notices. Jezebel likes to experiment with new disguises. She's a few years older than I am. I keep a pretty standard profile. I spin an old yo-yo from one finger and blow giant circles of bubblegum that burst on my cheeks. I never wash my hands or comb my hair. Pop likes to employ intimidation tactics. He grins at the treasure seekers from the docks with a harpoon in one hand, big holes in his teeth where he yanked them out with a socket wrench. He's got a set of whalebone pirate falsies chipped from chewing on gold coins that he wears whenever we go into town to trade. Pop isn't our real Pop, and Jezebel is not my real sister. But we feel like a family just the same. Pop stole us from a mainland orphanage and raised us up to be his pretend children. He plans to leave this island's legacy to us one day and retire to the Caribbean, where he doesn't have to keep secrets all the time and he can hear the whales sing while he sleeps. Of course, all that changes the day that the summer winds blow a hot air balloon our way. I first see it when I'm up in the lookout tower. The balloon's a big one, a fancy one. It's shaped like a medieval castle with elaborate, brightly colored turrets and banners flapping about in the sky. Whoever's inside is clearly an amateur. I watch it swoop and bump across the breeze in crazy circles for a while until eventually it trumpets into defeat and wedges itself into the spiky branches of one of our bramble trees, a good 20 feet up from the ground. The nylon shell of the balloon shreds into cheerful confetti while the thick gushing flame singes the leaves and sends the island's wombat-sized golden-eyed seagulls flying up into the air with loud caws. This is why we have bramble trees in the first place. We don't like folks getting too good an aerial view of our island. I watch the fellow inside try to work out a way down for a while before I get bored and wander off. There's a boatload of people arriving at Dead Man's Cove, and I scamper over there to make sure that everything looks just the way it should, inhospitable and ugly. I arrange bleached whale bones in the sand and throw laxative laced fish guts on the rocks so that our ravenous monster birds will shit all over them while swooping and diving bombing their picnic bunches of wine and marmalade sandwiches. After a few minutes of deflecting curious questions with a scowl and refusing to carry anyone's bags or help any high-heeled ladies across the sand, I forget all about the treed man inside his castle of hot air balloon. There's plenty of greedy ground people around to discourage and dismay. Charlie, Jezebel whispers to me from behind a thorn brush. She's dressed like a pygmy today. Her orange hair is coated in mud and she has war paint drawn on her face. Did you see the hot air balloon in the trees? I nod. He's stuck good. No getting out for a while. The colors, Jezebel says. I've never seen anything like them. She looks slightly bedazzled. I draw her attention to a couple of backpackers sharing a bag of granola, looking hardy and determined. There's no zip lining here, I call out to them, no waterfall jumping, no rock climbing, no hang gliding, no swimming with dolphins, just hungry bears and giant seagulls. If you get back in your kayaks and head south, you'll find an island with rainforests and elephants. They eye me up suspiciously and wander around a little until their waterproof boots are caked in excrement and fish guts, and then rinse themselves off and head back out to sea. One of our polar bears ambles out of the trees and then sends the remaining tourists screaming for their vessels. Well, that was an easy day work, I say to Jezebel, tossing the bear some herring from my backpack. But when I turn around, the bushes are empty and my sister has disappeared. That night, Jezebel is breathless at dinner. She's humming with excitement, some secret girlness that I can't understand. Pop doesn't notice. He sucks the meat out of crab legs, crushing the hard shells with his jaws. Butter and boiled seawater drip down his chin, and every now and again he breaks silence to mutter something about bloody tourists or the plummeting price of jewel-encrusted crowns. Jezebel sighs into her dinner plate. It looks like she's sculpting balloon castles out of potatoes. The man stays up in his basket all summer. He makes a rope ladder he can crawl down from to go fishing and swimming in the ocean, but at night he seems perfectly content to sit in his wicker basket, cook fish, and grill starfruit over the open flame. He has no sense of urgency. He doesn't seem to be trying to get anywhere. Pop doesn't like him much. Simpleton, he says, watching him from a pair of binoculars, but he doesn't pay him much more attention than that. It's mostly the other people that worry my Pop. They consume our entire summers. They arrive in ocean liners and jet planes, sometimes helicopters that drop parachuting squirrel gliders out over our private land. All we need is for one of these vultures to catch on to what we got here and we lose everything, Pop says. His eyes get a little crazy when he talks like this. When he really gets going, they turn into spinning 14-karat gold wheels. Ever since the hot air balloon caught Jezebel's eye, something's different with her. I'm not a trained treasure hunter for nothing. I tap the walls and floorboards of her room until I find the hollow spot that contains their secret correspondence. It's an appealing cigar box, buried under a heap of tiaras and jewels, and it's full of perfumed letters and declaratives. Lots of I love yous and I want to be with you forevers. I try to tell Pop, but he can hardly hear anymore after taking so much booby trap shrapnel in his ears. Don't bother me about your sister's lady problems, he says. He's busy planning out how to rig a decoy island across the bay with fake treasure. This past summer has been particularly stressful. One couple with eye patches and peg legs put their tent up right across the grass patch that covers the mouth of our underground tunnels. We had to pepper spray the breeze while they were sleeping to send them coughing and spluttering away. Times are getting tough, Charlie, he says. We gotta buckle down, reinforce our parameters. Tell that ducky to quit mooning over hot air balloons, perm her hair up, and help us keep this treasure hidden. That's what family's for. But this isn't what Jezebel thinks anymore. She sits at a desk in her room making kaleidoscopes of gemstone chips and gold dust. In her journal, she writes about plans to sell them in fancy galleries on the mainland. She wants to leave our island. Charlie, she jumps when she sees me standing in the doorway. I have cat fur below her feet. One of her cheeks is shimmering iridescent, where she must have touched her face. I scowl at her. Jezebel, I say, you have to forget this man in the balloon. What man? She asks, turning an unattractive shade of plum. You're leaving us, I say, or you want to anyway. What has he said that makes you want to abandon me and Pop? Oh, Charlie, she says, I'm not a kid anymore. I can't stay here forever. This is no kind of life for a woman. With her frizzled hair and muddy clothes, Jezebel looks nothing like a woman to me. I tell her as much and she throws me out of her room, displaying a real woman's fury. I'm warning you, Charlie, she yells through the door. I hear the slide of locks and clicks of latches. Try infiltrating my personal space again and you'll be impaled by an 11th century Viking sword. This is enough to make me cautious. Jezebel is a booby trapping master. She loves restoring ancient Scandinavian weapons. I give up. Instead, I decide to go to the source of the problem, the Lotharian break in the hot air balloon. Pop is frying gold eggs in the dark kitchen. He's drunk on pirate rum and wearing a long pajama shirt and night vision goggles, singing a shanty about adventure on the high seas. He doesn't even notice as I slip out the front door, exiting from our concealed fort cover made of soda, thorn branches, and poisonberry leaves. There's already a path through the forest to the man's tree. I suspect my sister has carved it out. I tread in her footsteps quietly so as not to spook any bats or bears or other nocturnal predators. I'm almost to the site of their aerial love tryst when I make an amateur's error. I step into a trip-line ankle snare and immediately find myself swinging back and forth, upside down, spiky brush snarling in my hair. This is Jezebel's handiwork, no doubt about it. It never even occurred to me that she would booby-trap the hot air balloon man for me and Pop. It's this thought that sends the piercing pain through me. Luckily, a treasure hider has never been prepared. I cut myself free with a dagger from my belt and tumbled into a pile of thorn bushes, but my ensuing howls give me away completely. The man in the balloon's alerted, and by the time I've righted myself, he's standing before me. Charlie, he says, I have been imagining different versions of the devil himself trying to steal my Jezebel away, but this man doesn't look anything like that. He's pretty plain, in fact. He smiles at me, and his crooked teeth gleam in the moonlight. I'm sorry about the trap, he holds out a hand. Your sister insisted. She was worried your pop would try to slit my throat while I slept if he thought I was trying to steal anything. I ignore his outstretched hand. Papa would slit your throat while you were sleeping if he knew what you were trying to steal, I tell him. The man looks at the dagger in my hand and nods. I'm Nigel, he says. His expression remains friendly. He gestures to the rope ladder. You want to come up? We can pull out some of those thorns. I don't like the implication that I need his help for anything. He's a thieving, good-for-nothing hot air ballooner as far as I'm concerned. I do want to see what he's got in his basket, though, so I follow him up, climbing one-handed, pulling thorns with my teeth and spitting them out into the night. Nigel's balloon looks pretty ordinary. Balloon basket looks pretty ordinary. There are some blankets disrupted from sleep, a pile of books that have seen better days, a string of dried fish hanging from a rack, smaller baskets woven out of vines containing fruit and other forage food, old moonshine jugs filled with water. From the top of his tree, the stars look extra bright. Nigel lights his lantern and motions for me to have a seat. So, he says. So, I say. About your sister, he says. You can't have her, I tell him. This leaves us in silence for a few minutes, and I am up good, continuing to spit thorns, so he knows I mean business. Somewhere in the forest, the trees shake with tussling polar bears rummaging for dinner. A colony of bats is dislodged, and they skitter off over our heads. Nigel doesn't even flinch. Charlie, you can't keep her here forever. He sounds suspiciously like Jezebel herself. Is that what you've been telling her, I ask, trying to keep the anger out of my voice. No one's keeping her here. This is our island. This is where she belongs. People belong where they want to be, Nigel says softly, like he's afraid his words will come crashing down, like he's afraid my world will come crashing down around me with his words. I could kill him. We'll maim him at least. He has the nerve that only an infiltrator that doesn't belong can have. Go land on your own island and say that. I'm an explorer, he says. The world is mine. I see a pile of cloth folded up to one side with sewing needles and thread. He's repairing his turrets. Soon he'll be airborne again. The thought of Jezebel sailing away with him strikes real panic in me. All right, I say, trying to keep the desperation from my voice. You can have some treasure. Gold, silver, diamonds. I'll bring you whatever you want. Just leave my sister behind. I should shake... Whoops. He shakes his head at me. You can't blame a girl for wanting to see the world, he says, and you can't blame a guy for falling in love with your sister. I should shake him. I know I should. Pop would be disgusted about what happens next. Tears, hot and fat, well up in my eyes. I try and think of things that make me angry, to make them go away. Things that will make me ready to slit Nigel's throat, but nothing comes. All I can think about is summers without Jezebel, winters without her, nighttime ramblings and booby trappings without her. Before I can stop her, the tears are falling. I hop out of the balloon basket and scale the ladder before Nigel has time to react. I race through the forest, oblivious to traps and tripwires, wandering polar bears, or particularly persistent tourist encampments. I'm going to have to tell Pop. I'll have to let him do what I can. But when I reach the house, Pop is passed out across the kitchen table over a string of pearls, his night vision goggles slipped to one side. He's snoring enough to bring the walls down. I knock on Jezebel's door, but she doesn't answer. And so I do the most shameful thing I've ever done and cry myself to sleep with my favorite crown on. Well, I'll stop there. Thank you.